Do you think this compromises his position as Culture Secretary, first of all, Brian Cathcart?
Yes, I'm afraid it does. The public can't have faith that this man has been acting. And remember, he's made very important decisions in relation to the press, decisions they welcome wholeheartedly, enthusiastically. The public can't have faith in his judgment, in his independence in making decisions about the media anymore.
So you, from Hacked Off, the body that would like to see more privacy, is advocating, if you like, that this story should be out there, full public disclosure.
I mean, it's not now, as John Sweeney said, it's not a story about John Whittingdale's private life. It is a story about why the press did not cover this. And to suggest, in the very week when we see newspapers baying for the right to cover a story about a celebrity's private life, which a judge has told them they have no right to cover, that in that very week they would be too scrupulous, too high-minded to report a story about a cabinet minister, which any judge in the country would tell them they have a right to. It's just absurd.
Roy Greenside, why do you think the papers didn't pick this up? Do you think there was a sense of high-mindedness, or do you think there wasn't public interest?
Well, you've got to think when it happened. It was not long after Leveson. They would all be very careful about whether or not they had a public interest justification. They would have all taken separate legal advice. They would have all looked at their code of practice. And I think it's a bit much to castigate newspapers for doing the right thing for once by deciding that this was a story about a man who was unmarried, who had a relationship with a woman who hadn't told him that she was a sex worker. When he did know, he ended the relationship. I can't see that there was a genuine story there, and clearly on the People and the Mail on Sunday and the Sun, they felt the same way.
Do you think that John Whittingdale did the right thing? He didn't tell his bosses at Number 10, and he did accept the position of Culture Secretary?
Well, that's a separate matter. I think it might have been wise to have done that, although he probably thought this is a relationship which is over and past. He was then only the chairman of the Select Committee. He didn't have much power in that position. When he did come to power, it was no longer a matter of amazing interest because it was over.
But
so I think in these
naive,
circumstances,
Roy.
we'd have to...
That's surely naive, Roy.
No,
I mean,
it's not,
the man has just become a minister.
You are.
It was absolutely.
Wait a second, we could just hear one time.
You are.
Roy Greenslade, let me just put it to you like this. Do you think he's compromised now? Can he still oversee regulation of the newspapers and implementation, if you like, of whatever is post-Leveson?
Oh, of course he can. I mean, I don't think this compromises him one whit. I mean, it's pure speculation that the newspapers have conspired to keep out this story. This is a competitive industry.
It was once pure speculation that newspapers hacked phones. Look, we have to be sceptical about this. This is a very murky world, as John Sweeney has said. The idea that these newspapers are too scrupulous when he becomes Culture Secretary to tackle him on this is just, it's naive, I'm afraid. These papers wanted power over a minister, and they had power over a minister. We don't know exactly, you're right, how that played out, but we do know that this same minister made 3 vital decisions, all of which were incredibly helpful to the press, and actually not terribly in the interests of the public.
OK, and Roy Greenside, you think that's all just a conspiracy theory?
That is a conspiracy theory. Look, it's quite straightforward here. Newspapers have decided that they would try and get a story. They've investigated the story and discovered there isn't a story that they can justify publishing.
That's not true. There are at least 5 public interest justifications for publishing this story.
What do you think should happen now? Brian Cathcart, briefly, because we're only out of time.
I think John Whittingdale... I tell you what I'd like to happen now is John Whittingdale to get out of the way of the legislation passed by Parliament, passed by all parties in Parliament.
Get out of the way, meaning what? Step down?
He is blocking this legislation, which will give everybody in this country access to justice in libel and privacy
Last word,
cases.
Roy Greenslade.
Well, no, it's quite simple, isn't it? He hasn't put that forward, but that's not his decision alone. This is a decision of the Cabinet and most obviously the Prime Minister. I can't think for one moment that John Whittingdale holds the fate of Britain's newspapers in his hands alone. That's just not on.
OK, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.